The smallest eye of the three breeds in proportion to head size. The Lakeland and Welsh are similar size-wise, but the Welsh Terrier has a harder expression. And you say, what do you mean by hard? Tough. Gonna get you. Even if they don't mean it. And I mean, I like Welsh, so don't get me wrong. But it's a tougher, more hard-bitten is one of the words that old terrier people use. The Lakeland is a brat. They're a clown, they're mischievous. And the look that you get in a good Lakeland eye is, okay, now what are we going to do for fun? And if you don't have a plan, I do. So they should look very alive, very bright, inquisitive, and a bit of the devil. So also in relation to eyes, color. Again, Fox Terriers and Welsh Terriers, essentially you want a black eye. So dark that it approaches black. Lakelands have a bit more range for a variety of reasons. Certainly you want a dark eye, and the darker the better. You know, this is true of almost all the terrier breeds. But in conjunction with that mischievous look, the kind of glint, is sometimes characterized by some reddish or brownish highlights in the eye. It does not mean a light eye. Let me repeat myself. But it is not quite as dark occasionally as a Welsh or a Wire and can still be perfectly appropriate. Unlike any other terrier breed, Lakelands come in a broad range of colors. You're most used to seeing your standard red or wheaten, black and tan, and most commonly grizzle, which is a combination of both. The colors are discussed in the Illustrated Standard pretty well, and I'll refer you to that. But I do want to specifically point out the liver color. Lakelands can be a solid liver, just like they can be solid red or solid black or solid blue. I've only seen one solid liver in my 35 plus years in Lakelands. But I have seen probably a dozen or so liver and tan. And the liver and tan dogs have a saddle that is chocolate brown, and they're born kind of the color of bittersweet chocolate. And you'll look at a liver the first time in the whelping box and say, is it black or is it brown? It'll be confusing. And as their coat develops, by the time they're a couple of weeks old, there's no question, and they're liver. Liver dogs genetically cannot have a black nose or black eye rims. It is genetically impossible. I saw a dog, very pretty, liver and tan bitch, being shown some years ago. Evidently, some of the judges were complaining, these were American judges, by the way, about her poor Pigment. And so the handler enhanced her nose. And she came in the ring with a black nose. And I turned around and I looked at her, I said, is that Amber? What did you do? And I said to the handler, you know that's genetically impossible. He said, well, tell the judges. So I'm telling the judges, it's genetically impossible. This does not mean they have a pink nose. It is brown. It's kind of, ideally, it's sort of the color of milk chocolate. And their lips and eye rims will be the same. They're also going to have, rather than the brown to black eye, they're going to have a hazel to brown eye. It should not have any hint of yellow. It's just too gross to contemplate. But hazel can be quite attractive in this coloration. So be aware that if you're judging a liver and tan dog, the eye color will not be as intense. But please, it should be pleasing to the eye. It should not give you any sense that, oh, whoa, am I looking at a Weimaraner here? No. Lakelands of any color will sometimes get what we call a winter nose or snow nose, and they will lose some pigment in their nose. The bitches tend to do it more so than the dogs, and it does seem to be hormonally induced. Is it a fault? Yeah, but not huge. I would evaluate it in conjunction with how dark are their eye rims, how dark are their feet, this kind of thing. Nails can be black or self-colored. If you've got black nails, you're generally going to have more intense pigment all over, and that's nice. But it's not, they've got to have. Blue Lakelands. Blue Lakelands, like most blue breeds, are born black, and their coat's clear, and sometimes in rather unattractive stages. So if you're judging a blue under 2 years of age, be generous. A blue is not the same as a bad-coated black. Blacks ideally should have a black undercoat. They don't always. Blacks can have a gray undercoat, and their furnishings, therefore, are going to be lighter. They're going to have some gray shading in them. If you're going to have a black dog, frankly, it needs to be black. And if it's got a lot of light undercoat, chances are its coat is going to be a bit suspect. So take that into account if you're judging a black dog. Are they ever dyed? Well, I've never had a black Lakeland, so I've never been faced with that challenge. I honestly don't know. Has it ever been done on a black dog? Probably. Are you going to be able to tell? No. One thing that you do need to be careful of in the blacks, and that laxity that I suggested you offer for eye color in a Lakeland that may allow some highlights of color, will not be pleasing in a black dog. On a black Lakeland, their eyes, frankly, need to be as dark as they can possibly be, or they look light in that black face. And it's just not going to go. So I think that basically covers, yeah.
Would you like to comment about eye color in blue dogs? Yeah.
It's a problem. Yes, it is a problem. Eye color in blue dogs, they tend often to have a lighter eye. It is not the same as the leeway you give a liver dog. Their eyes must be the same color as any of the other coated Lakelands. It should be dark, but it is a problem.
What about their nose in a blue? Are they a
It's a black nose.
It is definitely a black.
Yes.
Okay.
Their pigmentation should be the same as any of the other colors except liver. Liver's the only exception there. Any other questions before we take the break? And you'll have a chance for questions when we've got the live dogs. Yes?
Can you talk about color of furnishings, please? Oh my.
Lakeland Terriers, Lakeland color in its natural state is not necessarily what you're going to see in the ring. And so you use your common sense in, well, we'll start with the reds. A Wheaton dog is going to have the most even color distribution over the whole dog, top to bottom, because their back coat and their furnishings are going to be a similar color. A golden kind of apricot. They can almost have a pinkish cast to them. The reds run a much larger gamut. It should never be the red of an Airedale or a Welsh, the mahogany that we equate with those breeds. Even in the darkest reds, and some of them can be a very bright, intense color, particularly down their back. And I'll tell you, none of the dogs you're going to see tonight have a speck of color in them. They are all, at least they were an hour ago. So, ordinarily, in most Lakelands, their back coat, down the middle of their back and down over their ribs, the top of their heads, will be its darkest. And then their furnishings will tend, in most of them, to be a shade or so lighter. It's perfectly acceptable, normal. Some reds and some saddle mark dogs with very hard coats without a great deal of undercoat will tend to carry most of that color into their legs and face. It's generally going to be lightest in the fall, this longer hair over their eyes. That's where it's going to be its lightest shade. They very often, if they're completely unenhanced, will be a bit lighter down the sides of their neck and on their fannies. They're less likely to hold intense color there. The grizzling process their color can change over the years. You can judge a dog today that's, say, a year old, and judge it in a year and say, this can't be the same dog. It's a totally different color. The grizzling that starts, it describes it well, I think, in the Illustrated Standard, starts at the base of the tail and works up, starts from behind the ears, works down, starts through the loin and works forward over the rib cage. So that at the end, you'll have almost a salt and pepper effect with black and tan over the shoulders, and that's all that's left of their saddle. There are ways that you can predict these color variations. We won't get into those tonight. They're not really relevant for a judge so much as they are for the interest of the breeder. But all of these are acceptable. If you have a tremendous variation in shades look for too much undercoat. Chances are, because the undercoat in most Lakelands is going to be lighter. There are some notable exceptions, and those we bless them because we love them. Because again, it goes with the intense pigment and good coats. But most Lakelands, their undercoat's going to be several shades lighter than their top coat. And this will carry through into the furnishings. Please be considerate of the handlers when you're looking at coat. You do not need to evaluate a terrier's coat by going like that. I mean, you're going to freak them out. Don't do that. Yeah. That you can tell as much about coat texture simply by doing that. If you have any question about the quality and texture of the coat, then you can start looking elsewhere. But in all honesty, you do that, you're going to have a very good idea of what kind of a coat this dog has. Yes, dog shows are for show dogs. Conditioning counts. And you want a dog in nice coat and well-groomed so that you can evaluate shape and movement. But be aware and don't overly punish a dog that is not in prime condition, especially when we're talking about points. You don't reward the beautifully groomed but inferior dog over the structurally sound typey dog that's just not quite in as good condition. Don't be mesmerized just by the fancy stuff. Now, this bitch is just 13 months old, and if you'll notice, the neck, we've got nice length of neck, but it's not real well developed yet. She's got lovely, when I was talking about, Mary, when I was talking about bringing my hands down here, I want to be able to come down here over the shoulders and down over the ribs and not hit any protuberances. And this goes for virtually any age. You certainly don't want to see it in a youngster this age because it's only going to get worse. It will never get better. Never, ever. It will only get lumpier. Stop. You can do this. It's a nicely balanced head, length to length. The eye, oval in shape, dark brown. This is a small, not overly small, nice size, but small bitch. Look at the size of those teeth. And that is a lovely scissors bite. The teeth are perfectly aligned, and there's no space for anything but teeth there. So if that comes in contact with quarry, she's got a grip, and she's going to be able to hold on tight. So that's what you're looking for. Ears. It's what we would call a fancy ear. When she brings them up alert and tight, they come almost exactly to the corner of the eye. Sometimes you'll get a little tighter fold here, but this is perfectly acceptable. And right now she's hyperventilating, and so when they're panting like that, this pushes this all back, and it's going to tend to pull the ears back a bit. So she's not going to bring them in quite as tight. You'll notice, steady, her chest has yet to drop. It's what we would call a shallow brisket if this was a mature dog, but it's a 13-month-old puppy. So you don't want any more width than that between the front legs at this age for a dog of this construction. Lovely straight legs, lovely small round feet. Nails are self-colored on this dog. What?
Is the bone round?
Yeah. And moderate, I would say well in proportion to her size. She doesn't have a lot of leg hair. You know, I'm mashing it down, that's her leg. So, you know, I wish, there are just too many of us to, you know, everybody get their hands on the dogs. But you can see what I'm doing here. Her leg fills my hand. You know, it's nice and round. If you look, we were asking for a brick. Stop, sweetie. I know, you're being very patient, sort of. We've got nice rectangular, cheeks flat, top skull flat. That muzzle pretty well fills my hand for a small, you know, rather refined bitch. That's, you know, and I've got pretty good sized hands. Now, she's having a bit of a false pregnancy from her first season, but again, you notice the chest has not yet dropped. Rib cage, that's the back of her ribs, right in front of my finger. So that's rib cage from there to there. That's all the loin she has. That's what I mean by a long rib cage and a short loin. Again, tail set is set right up on top of her back. Not an exaggerated tail set, but a very, very nice one. These are the points of the pelvis that I was talking about. And again, for her size and shape at this age, that's just about as nice as you're going to want it. Nice broad little butt. And in balance with the amount of body that she has at this age. Now she's going to go rocking horse on me. Her shoulder blades, the top of her shoulder blades are right there. As her neck develops and develops its crest, she's a little higher in the withers.
What age do you find the crest comes in?
It varies, generally not before 18 months. It starts to come in, some a little sooner than others, some of them never. And you can predict it if, as you point her nose to the ground, you can see the potential for it is there. It's not there yet. I think it's going to come. Moderate angulation. You don't have this big sweeping stifle. Not necessary. Hocks, pretty short. So this, and again, color-wise, this is an example. She's got a lovely, crisp, wiry coat, carries that texture right down into her furnishings, and the color, yeah, you get to leave in a minute. The color is really quite even overall. Remember I said it's often lighter on the sides of the neck and the butt, and she shows that. But this is her natural color. So let's get Bro in. Where's Master Pete? Now, this dog is, at this age, the nasty word for Lakelands. He's extreme. I believe, knowing his bloodline, hi Pete, that he will grow into himself. But he's a male, he's larger, taller, but not a whole lot larger than his sister right now. And so he kind of looks like he's on stilts because, again, the chest hasn't dropped yet. He hasn't developed. He's got a long neck. Yeah, you're a good boy. Yeah, you're my buddy. There's a lovely, alert expression. That's as large as you want an ear. It's not too big, but you notice how close together the ears are when he pulls them up. And that's what I mean by kissing the cheek. And this is a dog, if you look at his eye, he's got a softer eye than his sister. It's a little rounder than his sister. It's no part of light, but it's got a lot of highlights in it. And so that's where you get the softer, not gentler expression, but just not quite as varminty looking as some of the other terriers.
That's what they mean when they say a twinkle in your father's eye.
Yeah. 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 You know, people say, oh, I want a bitch, they're more affectionate. In this breed, if you want a love muffin, you want a boy. They call bitches bitches for a reason. Now, this dog, particularly at this age, you could say, well, he kind of